Okay, we're starting the live stream now, members of council who are on the screen. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the council meeting for Wednesday, February the 9th. We are just waiting to achieve quorum. We need at least one other member of council to join us with their camera on and ready to go before we can get started. So bear with us just for a little while, and hopefully we'll be able to start momentarily.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councillor Chan. I'm having a technical difficulty. I'm still waiting for the link to come to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chan. We'll hopefully get that resolved soon. We do need another member for quorum.
He does.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Munch. We appear to now have the 5 members that are constitute quorum, so we can get started. Okay, so welcome again, everybody, to the February 9th council meeting, our first council meeting back after the municipal by-election. So the first item of business on any of our agendas is to call to order. So I'd like to call this meeting to order, and please rise for our national anthem. Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is public forum. Just to be clear, this is a time where people can come and speak to council about an item that is not on the agenda. And we have one delegate that'll have a 5-minute time slot to speak today. His name is Wei Hua, and he is going to be speaking to us, I understand, regarding contribution rebate program for the October 22 municipal election. So Mr. Hua, if you can join us, I think I saw you there in the meeting somewhere. If you can, there we are. So Mr. Hua, you've got 5 minutes to address council.
Okay, thank you, Mayor West. Trying to get myself familiar with the Zoom tool. Okay. Your Worship, Mayor West, and all councillors, I'm here today to request that the City of Richmond Hill should adopt a contribution rebate program for the upcoming October 2022 municipal election. Quoting from Mississauga's Mayor Bonnie Crombie, various municipalities in Ontario have implemented election campaign rebate programs. A small cost of a campaign election rebate program is a worthy investment if it will broaden the source of campaign funding and potentially increase voter and candidate participation. For a backgrounder, a campaign program, a rebate program enables a municipality to reimburse contributions made by individuals to a campaign of a candidate seeking election for mayor or councillor. The principal purpose of the program is to encourage participation in municipal elections by reducing the financial burden placed on candidates and campaign donors. A rebate program requires candidates to issue receipts to donors who would then apply for a rebate from the city. Rebates would only be processed after the election and after candidates file their financial statements, which would be after March 2023. As municipal campaign contributions are not eligible for income tax rebates, a rebate program will be helpful for residents' participation in this democratic process. Practically, a bylaw would need to be adopted right away to allow staff to prepare for candidate nominations starting on May 1st, 2022. And I urge the council to consider this. Just for comparison, what's going on in the other municipalities in Ontario for existing contribution rebate programs. Mississauga's rebate program includes the following. Only Mississauga residents are eligible to participate in the program. Residents are eligible for a rebate of 25% of financial contributions of $25 or more, up to a maximum rebate of $150. Candidates have to be running for mayor or council race. It's not for candidates themselves or the spouse or child of a candidate. The 2018 contribution rebate program for Mississauga paid out approximately $36,000. Upon review of the program, Mississauga Governance Committee had recommended that the program be updated for the 2022 municipal election on a new formula of 50% rebate on the contributions of $100 or more. The other local municipalities have implemented a contribution rebate program include Ajax, Markham, Ontario, Ottawa, Toronto, Vaughan, Whitby. Up to, for Mississauga, for Markham and Toronto, they were up to 75% of the contribution, mimicking the provincial rebate tiers. As you may remember, for the provincial contributions, you have income tax rebate. The eligibility and the rebate formulas do vary by municipalities. The rebate payout amounts vary quite greatly too. For example, the town of Oakville provides a 50% rebate of contributions over $100 up to the maximum $2,500. The program is limited to the residents of Oakville. In 2018, Oakville paid out approximately $100,000. So it's a cost, but not huge cost for the municipality. It will help to promote the democratic process for its higher participation. So thank you for your time and your consideration. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hua. That's an interesting program. I appreciate that. If you have other information to share with the council, I would encourage you to send that to the clerk's office and they can distribute that to members of council after this meeting. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, that's the only speaker, sorry, in the public forum. So the next item on the agenda is council announcements. So do we have any council announcements?
Councillor Pirelli.
Okay, so Councillor Pirelli, I see your hand. I see Councillor Barros, and I see Regional Local Councillor DePaulo as well. So Regional Local Councillor Pirelli, why don't you start?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to wish a very good and dear friend of mine a happy 50th birthday. And I want the council and the entire city of Richmond Hill to join me in saying to Councillor Greg Barros, happy 50th birthday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pirelli, and Councillor Barros, I will say you look very good on your 50th birthday today too, so congratulations. Actually, Councillor Barros, you're the next on the list.
Thank you. I have correspondence on the agenda, but I also wanted to take this opportunity now to congratulate you, David, on your recent election win as the new mayor of the city of Richmond Hill. And I bring these congratulations from all of the staff and the board members at the Richmond Hill Public Library. The Richmond Hill Public Library is a vibrant organization which residents from all parts of life enjoy the services that we offer. And of course, it's only done with the support, the strong support of this particular council. So congratulations. I'm really looking forward to this turning point in our council. Under the leadership of Mayor Dave Barrow, we enjoyed a healthy, robust debate in the council chambers. And unfortunately, that time was sullied a bit under the leadership of Councillor DePaulo. But I trust that with you now at the lead, we are going to go back to those sunny days that we had with Mayor Barrow. So I'm looking forward to it. Again, congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I appreciate the letter. I did see that correspondence on the agenda, and it's quite clear that the library is a very important part of our community, as it is in any community. They certainly are a library in our community that we can be proud of. So I thank you for that, and please pass on my thanks to the rest of the library board and staff as well. Thank you. Okay, the next speaker on the agenda is Regional and Local Councillor DePaulo.
Thank you, Mayor West. As Deputy Mayor, I too want to congratulate you on behalf of Council and all of our staff. We stand behind you. Your success is our success, and our success is the city's success. We look forward to serving under your leadership, ensuring Richmond Hill's positive and deserved place as the center of a vibrant and sustainable York region. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. That's very kind. I thank you very much, Regional Local Councillor DePaulo. The next person on the list is Councillor Chan.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Mayor West and all my colleagues. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor, for running a clean campaign and elected to the office in this leadership position. As Cody who said early on, that I for one, and I'm sure my colleagues would join me in working together, so that as the birthday boy said, turn the page. And also I'd like to take an opportunity to thank our staff, particularly the clerk's office, if the election staff. I mean, they did a wonderful job. Of course, there are always areas for improvement. Yes, Regional Councillor Pirelli, they deserve certainly the applause and certainly areas for improvement, which I'm sure that will be looked at before the October election. I also want to thank all voters who came out or do online voting at home, because at least in my years of service here at Richmond Council, this is one of the highest, if not the in terms of turnout rate at 32% in the winter during the pandemic. So thank you to everyone who participated in this democratic process. And also to all candidates who have to put forward the name. Those of us who have been running campaign know it's not an easy task. So congratulations to everyone who put forward the name for that. And last but not least, today is the 9th day of the Year of the Tiger. So I'd like to take this opportunity to wish everyone, regardless of your cultural, ethnic background, the Year of Tiger symbolizes strength, stability. And as speakers before me, I, for one, looking forward to have a stable and strong environment for council and the city of Richmond Hill to move forward. So happy 9th day of the Year of the Tiger to everyone. And thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to share those comments.
Thank you, Councillor Chan. The next person on the list I have is Councillor Munch. Councillor Munch, go ahead.
Good day. Congratulations on your electoral success, Mr. Mayor. Wish you all the best. And I want to wish, and I'm going to just reiterate everybody else's best of luck, as well as like to wish, obviously, Councillor Barros happy birthday. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Councillor Munch. So I would like to just say a couple things. Thank you to everybody for your kind words. And I did want to reiterate my thanks to our staff who have run the election in our clerk's office. They did a very good job. And, you know, this is not an easy thing during a pandemic and so on. So thank you to all of your staff. Mr. Hike, if you could pass that along. I do want to thank all the candidates that ran it. As was said by Councillor Chan, this is not a small task to put your name forward, and we appreciate that. And I also would like to thank Regional Local Councillor and Deputy Mayor DiPaolo for taking over the reins during the interim period after Mayor Barrow left us. So thank you, Councillor DiPaolo. That was no small task either. And finally, I would like to echo Councillor Chan's words. You know, happy Year of the Tiger. It is a great occasion, and I agree with you. Regardless of what you're used to celebrating in your culture, it's so wonderful to be able to be in a community like Richmond Hill that we can pretty much party a couple of times a month if we get on with somebody else's culture as well as our own. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody. And with that, we'll get on to the next item. Sorry. Okay, so the next item is introduction of emergency and time-sensitive matters. Is there anybody that has an emergency or time-sensitive matter at this time? Okay, I would like to introduce an emergency or time-sensitive matter. So to do that, I would like to temporarily pass the chair of the meeting to Councillor DiPaolo while I introduce that for Council's consideration to add to the agenda today. So Councillor DiPaolo, if I could pass the chair to you.
Okay, Mayor West, thank you. I gladly assume the chair and give you the floor to move your time-sensitive matter.
Okay, thank you. So this is an item that is a time-sensitive matter. We are, as everybody knows, and I want to talk just about at this point in the meeting about the advisability for councils to consider about adding this to the agenda, not the item necessarily itself. This is a time-sensitive matter. We are, as everybody knows on council, and most people in the community know, have been going through a process for quite some time to come up with a plan for a transit-oriented community at Richmond Hill Centre. This has been progressing very quickly, and one thing, the staff has been working very hard for quite a long time, getting our secondary plan ready, and now also dealing with this plan that the province is considering imposing on this area. And they've been working very hard at that. But council, at this point in time, Richmond Hill Council has not put forward a position on that matter. And I think that it is very important for us to join with Markham and the region to make our comments from council known to the province as we progress very quickly through this process. So I want to reiterate, I mean, we are very much in support of the Yonge North Subway Extension, and we're in support of the idea of having a transit-oriented community, as we outlined in an MOU that was signed a while ago. But there are some issues that still need to be resolved, and the motion that I would propose will include an outlining of some of those issues and our position, which staff has taken on our behalf up to this point to a large degree, that still need to be resolved as we move through this process. So as I said, I think it's important that Richmond Hill Council show leadership. As I mentioned earlier, the region of York in January has put forth their recommendation, and we've also had Markham put forth their council resolution, and I think we should be doing the same. The time is very short on this. The commenting period ends at the end of February, and we really need to be getting those comments to the province and outline our position imminently. So that would be my proposal at this time. So Councillor Pirelli, I see you have a request to speak. Are you willing to second that before we go any further? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not chairing the meeting. Councillor DePaulo.
Okay, Regional Local Councillor Pirelli, are you wanting to second the time-sensitive introduction?
No, thank you.
Yeah, we'll wait for a seconder and then I'll come back to you.
Well, no, it's my turn to speak.
You want
It's my turn to speak.
No, I need a seconder. I'm going to put this on the floor. Thanks, Councillor
Yes,
Silver.
I will second. Thank you, Councillor
Very
DePaulo.
good. Okay, go ahead, Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was listening very careful to Mayor West's introduction of this time-sensitive matter. At no time did I hear, and I'm quoting from our procedural bylaw, that this matter relates to a significant financial, legal, or contractual, and the operative word here is deadline. Mayor West has very eloquently stated that staff have been requested for comments. Staff has been at this for several years. So therefore, staff knows that they have a deadline. They know when that deadline is, and they will make their comments. This has nothing to do with council. This has to do with staff making their comments to the province through this process. Since it does not meet the definition of time sensitive, nor does it meet the definition of emergency, because it's not financial, it's not legal, and it's not a contractual deadline. This is improperly being introduced here, and I cannot in good conscience support this. The whole process is being violated here, and our procedural bylaw is not being followed. If consultation is important, procedural bylaws are important to respect the rights of the people making the comments. If this is an important issue, although it's not time sensitive, Mr. Mayor can introduce it in 2 weeks and consult with staff to get them to respond to the province. So it's not a time sensitive, it's not an emergency, and it should not be added to this agenda. He has 2 weeks, next council meeting is in 2 weeks. It's perfectly fine. There's no deadline here at all. And it's definitely not financial, legal, or contractual. Thank you.
Okay, so I've got a speakers list going. Mayor West, I'll go to you next, and then Councillor Barros and Councillor Munch. Oh, sorry, Mayor West, if you can hold off to the second round, having introduced this. Councillor Barros.
Thank you very much. I guess I've got a question to the mover. On the agenda today, we have some member motions from a member of council who's taken the time to fill out the form, send it through the clerk's office in the requisite amount of time, giving the public and everyone on council the opportunity to look it over, to make comments, and then be here today to have a fulsome discussion. So my question is to Mayor West. Mayor West, did you just become aware of this transit-orientated community in the last few days, not giving you enough time to have put this motion together through the proper channels?
You don't have to answer, Mayor West, but if you'd like to, go ahead.
No, I'm happy to answer it. I've been very aware, as has all of council, I'm sure, been aware of this for quite some time now.
Okay, so that's good. So by your own admission, you admit that you were aware of it. but you
That's not the full answer, Councillor Barros. If you'd
Well,
like. me to
that's the answer I was
continue to give you
looking
the
for.
full answer,
So
I'd be happy to.
you've got an opportunity during the second round to give additional comments. This is my turn to ask questions. Thank you. We've now got ourselves in a situation where if we allow this to go forward, we're saying to the public, the process doesn't matter. You know, if I just didn't get things done in time, I was well aware of it. We've got that admission. I was well aware of it. I just didn't get it done in time. So I need to now, you know, push it through the back door, which I couldn't get through the front door. And that's not proper process. I can't vote in favor of allowing it. By all means, Mr. West, if you would like to put it on the agenda for the next meeting, that's fair game. That would give the province, the applicants, members of the public, an opportunity to come and delegate to this. I agree with the comments that were previously made. I don't see where, if we don't deal with this between now and the next meeting, we've put the city of Richmond Hill, the corporation, in an awkward position. You're asking for an additional 90 days. Well, between now and the next council meeting, that still gives you lots of time for that question to be asked of the province and to keep moving. So I will vote no on this. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to it.
Okay, Councillor Munch and then Councillor Silvitz.
Good day. Thank you. So I would ask the mover as well. And I hope members of council, are you aware of the province's housing affordability panel?
Mayor West?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I am aware of that. That came out a couple of days ago from the Affordability Task Force.
Okay, so you're aware of it from the last 2 days?
That's what I just said, yes.
Okay, so I sent a link for those that haven't read it. It's actually, the draft report's been out for 3 weeks. And I understand there's a mayor election. You may not have been, focused on that. And I guess I asked next thing, I guess the mover, have you read any of the report?
Mayor West.
Councillor Munch, yes, I have certainly, I'm quite aware of it and I have read the report, yes.
So I think it's best, given the report on, I hope other members of council have read it. If they've not, I've sent every member of council a copy of it. It really is extremely telling on what we've done, which is going to have huge ramifications for this municipality as a governance and how it's going to relate to our community going forward. And actually, this motion may contravene exactly what that proposal has done, asking for another 90 days. So further to the other people's comments, I think it's really important that we have a wholesome discussion, because I do think we need to comment, but I think more importantly is we have to work collaboratively with the province, because if you read the report and the situation, this council has not agreed that we are in a housing crisis in any way, shape, or form, except at the region, which clearly is not consistent with this report. And this motion is inconsistent with that report. And I don't think we should be doing on a time-sensitive nature that isn't time-sensitive, doesn't meet the definition. We should be following procedures. I'm a big fan of somebody that follows protocol and follows procedures. So I'm going to say to you that given that there hasn't been a wholesome information exchange on this situation, I understand there's going to be another announcement this week that's also going to affect us. So I would say to you that seeing that the mover hasn't in great detail understood or read the report only in the last couple of days. In fact, it came out yesterday morning at 8 o'clock. I would say to you that we really should move this forward for the public engagement. We should allow people to have we should be really communicating the ramifications of the entire, if this moves forward, this is going to change our entire city, its makeup and everything else, by council's choice, because we have not performed in any way, shape, or form. And this report is very, very scathing. And for those that haven't read it, I strongly encourage you to take the time to read one of the most important documents that we have when you see the report on our municipality and others, and the situation where we are not, as a council, communicated consistently, even though, we'll go into greater detail later. So I really think that we should really follow the rules. I think we should read the information. We should govern responsibly. We should work collaboratively. And I think seeing we've got usually have a council meeting once a month, this time we have twice a month because of the by-election took place. I think it'd be very, very responsible as a government to say, we want people's engagement. We do want to engage in good faith. We can govern and we want to work collaboratively. That would be my approach. And I'd ask everybody to truly focus on the best interest of our community and our governance when you go forwards with this concept. So I don't believe this meets time sensitive, and I think you should be putting it forward before noon today, so it goes forward in 2 weeks, so we can have a wholesome debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Silovitz, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor DiPaolo. As the second of the motion, I respectfully do not agree with the three previous speakers. I believe that this is, without any question, time sensitive and in an emergency. We have also, I don't think I need to remind members of council, we have put forward and agreed to or approved motions before that are time sensitive or emergency according to the mover of the motion, and they have been approved. So this is without any question, time sensitive and emergency. We must respond. And Councillor Barris, you can shake your head as much as you want, but I'm speaking. You can respond. We must respond. And in order for us to respond appropriately, the motion that I would like to remind members of council and inform the public that Councillor West diligently sent to all members of council yesterday so that we could have a look at it and give our input prior to this meeting. So I fully support this. And I do believe that Mayor West is being diligent and he's doing exactly what he should do, not only as mayor, but as a member of this council. As Councillor Munch said, this matter is going to affect Richmond Hill, our municipality, our city, right into the future. There's no timeline here. And Markham has responded, and if this is approved and the motion comes forward, that's exactly what the motion says, that we stand with Markham and we ask for this. So Markham is the holder of the gateway, the Langstaff Gateway property, and they're asking for this. So I 100% concur. And I find it unfortunate that others don't. However, such is the nature of 8 different people on council. However, from me, fully supported. Thank you, Mayor West, for bringing this forward.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Silovitz. So before we go to a second round, I haven't spoken yet, and I want to be very clear. I want a recorded vote on this introduction of this time-sensitive matter. I think it is absolutely of an emergency nature that this council discuss this, and not only at this meeting, at the next meeting, at every opportunity. We were the only municipality in the province that had our council meeting delayed because of the mayor by-election. This is our first opportunity. Mayor West has had 1 week to get up to speed on this and diligently came forward with notice of motion. I support the introduction of this onto the agenda.
Point of order.
I'm going to take the point of order from Councillor Barros.
The speaker just said that a notice of motion was filed. If that was the case, it would have been on the agenda last week for the public to see, for everyone to see. Would you please remind the speaker that mistruths will not be tolerated on this council?
Okay, thank you for that interruption. So where I was.
Excuse me. See, this is the problem we had when you were the acting mayor, those snide little comments. A point of order is not an interruption. A point of order is part of the procedural bylaw. I brought up an issue.
No, you
Please
didn't.
keep your personal comments to yourself.
Okay. My ruling on your point of order was that it was not related to a procedural matter that was out of order, and that it was merely an interruption. So I'm going to carry on in speaking. And where I left off was that I fully support the mayor's motion. With regards to the Affordability Task Force and their findings and their report, that report is an absolute—
Point of order.
Yes.
The procedural bylaw requires that all notices of motion be put on the agenda. Can you please present said document? I'd like to see it through you to the clerk. I'd like to see the notice of motion, please, that you claim was submitted to the clerk's office on behalf of the mover.
Okay. That's not a point of order.
Yes, it is a point of
You're
order.
requesting something.
I'm not requesting, I'm asking, you've made a statement that the notice of motion was given. I need to see the notice of motion. Procedurally, members of council are all entitled to see that, as are the members of the public. I'd like to see the notice of motion that you claim was submitted by the mover of the motion.
Okay. I'm speaking now. It's my turn. You're merely making a request. You're making a request.
No, I'm
That's not a point
responding.
of order.
I'm responding to your statement that
Can't respond to my statement.
procedurally, I'm entitled to see a notice of motion, as are my colleagues on council, as are members of the public. If for some reason I have not been provided said notice of motion, I think it's incumbent upon you to ensure that all members of council receive this notice of motion, and I'd like to see it.
Okay, it's not, that's not a point of order. Mr. Clerk, could you mute Councillor Barros and Pirelli? If they have, in fact, a genuine point of order that we're violating something, but I'm duly within my rights now. It's my 5 minutes to speak to this introduction of time-sensitive matter. Okay. The report that was filed by the task force on affordability is an absolute assault on the municipal process, on municipal government. The suggestions in that report are to strip away and take away all of the things that we hold dear in local councils deliberating upon growth and applications within their municipality. It is terrifying that the provincial government is considering a report of that nature. In terms of affordability, housing affordability, there are all sorts of other solutions. They merely address the supply issue and not all of the other concerns that were raised by large city mayors at the Housing Affordability Summit. So this transit-oriented community that's being proposed on Richmond Hill is doubling the population that we diligently felt that we could manage at Yonge and Highway 7. We had a year and a half of a consultation process with our residents. We have an official plan that I believe is excellent, that we were in the 11th hour that we're dealing with today also. So this motion is extremely time sensitive. It's extremely important. It is the most significant thing that's going to affect this municipality. And I believe it needs to be addressed and discussed today as Mayor West has proposed that we do so. So I'm definitely voting in favor of the introduction of this matter. So on the second round, Mayor West, you wanted to speak again to your motion? Go ahead.
Yes, please. Thank you. So just to respond to a couple of the things, I mean, the Housing Affordability Task Force is definitely an issue that's just hit the shore, and we're going to be dealing with this. But it isn't what we're talking about in this particular motion. It will be something I'm sure we'll be talking about. The reality is that in 2 weeks, as was suggested, this will be too late. And I would argue that, you know, really, I mean, the region of York put their comments out in their motion on January the 13th, and Markham put theirs out a couple of weeks ago. We need to get this out quickly. It was virtually impossible for me to get this a very complex motion together in the short time period that we've had as we've gotten back to council. And that is why it's before you today. Procedurally, it's up to council right now to decide whether this is appropriate. I would argue that this is a legal and contractual obligation that we're considering. And so therefore, I think it does apply to our procedural bylaw, that it is in compliance. And that's up to council to decide, but that's my interpretation. The 90 days that we're asking for is we're asking for that in the motion. It won't necessarily be granted. But there's probably less opportunity for us to advocate for an extension so that we can have further consultations without council providing their position on this. So it is a part of the motion, and that is what, if this is adopted, we can discuss when we discuss the motion. I think it's very important that the motion is worded in such a way that we are very happy, and I am very willing to work collaboratively with the province. I think it is clear from so many things that we've talked about over the last 8 years, and especially in the last 3 years, that the young subway is very important to us. The fact that we are looking at a vibrant and dynamic community at Highway 7 and Yonge, but we've got to get this right. So the partner that we're dealing with right now very much is the province of Ontario, and we are committed to working with the province of Ontario, and will continue to do so. And the final thing is the affordability, as Councillor Munch suggested, and he's talked about this a lot over the last little while, and I agree that affordability is one of the most daunting issues that we are dealing with right now. And one of the many issues that I'm concerned about with the TOC proposal, from what I understand, is that there is not yet a guarantee of the specificity of affordability within the plan. But it's one of many items that I think we need to talk about. I feel, and this is the reason I put this motion forward, that it is very important for us as a council to weigh in on our position on this. As mayor, I also believe that it's also important to make sure that there is a council position behind any discussions that staff or myself are going to be having with the other proponents of this plan, including Infrastructure Ontario, Metrolinx, and so on. So this is simply an ask for a position from council to go forward that is solidifying the position that staff has already been putting forward up to this point. So that's all I've got to say about this. It's, as I said, it is up to council at this point in time to determine whether this is appropriate, because it was a motion that came late, fully within the procedural bylaw, I would add. But it's up to council now to decide how they want to deal with this going forward.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Chan, you haven't spoke yet, so you go ahead, and then in the second round, I've got Councillor Pirelli and Councillor Barros.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to say that actually, as the local councillor, where this transit-oriented communities proposal from Infrastructure Ontario is going to happen around the high-tech stations, is actually in Ward 6, of course, is in the city. So on this particular issue, that I am glad to hear from Mayor West. In fact, in the motion itself, which after I took a look, I am happy second, not the motion to be a time-sensitive emergency motion, but on the motion itself, because number one, as said by the mayor.
Okay, Councillor Chan, I do have a point of order from Councillor Barros.
Why this is so difficult. We are only to be speaking as to why this is an emergency or time-sensitive item to be put on. You're letting everyone talk to the motion.
Yeah,
that might
valid.
be suggested. So
okay.
Please,
it's a valid objection.
when you're chairing,
Councillor
keep it in line.
Keep it to whether or not this constitutes a time-sensitive motion.
Okay, fair enough. So on the matter of time sensitiveness, I think its comment already been made. This is the very first meeting of Richmond Council in the year 2022. So this is the first opportunity to have this important issue that affecting our Southern Gateway and our future subway station in Richmond Hill. So in that particular sense, I do concur. This is emergent matter that we have to deal with in our very first meeting. And I would also let you know, Mr. Chair, should this particular motion, whether in fact will be considered in contravention of the procedural bylaw, whether it constitutes as time-sensitive emergency matter, then I like to give an opportunity to move a motion to waive the procedural bylaw, contingent upon the outcome of this motion in front of us, which is to say whether accept it or not as a time-sensitive emergency motion. Thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Chan. Okay, Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Thank you. Wow. I'd like to respond to the comments that were made earlier. We weren't allowed to say them during a point of order, so now would be the proper time to address some statements that were made. The fact that this is our very first meeting, according to Councillor Chan, is not referenced in the emergency part of the definition of emergency or time sensitive. There's no mention of that. This does not meet the emergency time sensitive definition. The comment made by Councillor DePaula that the staff, this is going to double the density that we feel we can handle. I'm not sure who we're referring to as we don't feel we can handle. I guess the members have to make a decision. Did staff respond or did they not respond? Because you're quoting staff's position, but the reason we're here is allegedly because staff have not responded with our comments to the province. So this is a sucking and blowing at the same time issue. There is no procedural contract in any of this. There's no contract. This is the will of one member of council who wants to bypass the rules. And the rules are very clear. And I will quote them to you again. A time-sensitive matter means a matter that relates to a...
Councillor Pirelli, there's a point of order. Point of order, Mayor West, go ahead.
I assume that he's referring to me somehow trying to bypass the process. That's a completely inappropriate statement. And
that's not a procedural issue.
It is not. It is fully within the procedure. It's up to council to decide. I would ask that kind of language not be used.
Well,
you're correct, Mayor West. We are considering whether or not to introduce this as time sensitive appropriately and correctly. Go ahead, Councillor.
And appropriately, Councillor West's statement that it's up to council. This council does not have the right, in good faith, to vote against the bylaw. The definition, again, and I'll read it. Time sensitive means a matter that relates to a significant financial, legal, or contractual deadline, none of which exists for the city of Richmond Hill. Does not exist. You're talking about a planning issue that we deal with every single day. The comment that this was the only opportunity to bring it, I would remind members of council that an emergency time-sensitive council meeting was called by the mayor within 24 hours of him being inaugurated and taking the oath of office. Mr. Mayor has the opportunity to call a meeting at any time between now and the next meeting if he so chooses. He didn't choose that option. He chose to bring it here procedurally as an emergency or time-sensitive. I will now read to you the definition of emergency. And the definition of an emergency means a situation or an impending situation where there is a threat to public health, life, property, or the environment. Allow me to be clear. If this council votes contrary to the definitions as set out in our procedural bylaw, I will make a judicial inquiry into quashing this bylaw for its illegality. I have stated it repeatedly. Now, through you, Mr. Chair, to our clerk, I want his opinion to see if this meets what he considers the definition of emergency and or time sensitive. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I have said on this issue in the past, Regional Local Councillor Prelli has read the definition of time sensitive as set out in the procedure bylaw. I've said on this issue in the past that it is for council to decide whether this is a significant legal, financial, or contractual information that can't be waited until the next meeting. That is ultimately council's decision.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to our legal staff, Mr. DeMilta. I want him to comment on if this is, in his opinion, meets the definition.
Mr. DeMilta.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of, it's a similar answer to the clerk as we stated last time. I agree with the clerk's position on the application of the procedure bylaw.
Thank you. So in other words, what the clerk and the legal department are saying that we have to determine as a council if this definition is met. Again, I will state categorically that if this council chooses to disregard the true definition, intent, and spirit of this procedural bylaw in regards to being emergency and or time sensitive, I will make a claim through the courts to have the bylaw quashed. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Barrows and then Councillor Munter next, but Councillor Liu, you haven't spoke yet. So go ahead, Councillor Liu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Having listened to both sides of the arguments, I would like to, through you once again, Mr. Chair, to Mayor West. Can you reconfirm the time sensitive and emergency-ness of this motion, because you mentioned that council is running out of time. I just want a confirmation on that. Are we really running out of time and cannot wait till the next meeting? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
It is my understanding, Councillor Liu, that the province has indicated that it's looking for a response on this by February the 23rd, and it is also my understanding that there is a good possibility that there will be a ministerial zoning order that will come at the beginning of March to implement said plan. So the negotiations have been going on this matter for some time. And there is as I said before, it's up to council to decide, but my feeling as mayor and as a member of this council is that council has not yet had its own position put forward, and the motion that we're talking about today, should it be adopted out of the agenda, is an opportunity for council to determine and debate what their position is going to be. So the time was very short to get this motion in place, and the time is also very short due to the by-election to get this motion on the floor for council to determine what they want to do with it. So that's where we're at as far as I am concerned, and that is why I put this in front of you today.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, that really helps. Thank you very much for the information. So our next meeting is February 23rd. So that's why I think, according to you, that we need to discuss it before the February 23rd, so that whether or not council supported the request of a 90-day extension, I think we should actually talk about it. Whether or not this is time sensitive or emergency matter, I think this is for sure a public interest matter. I think there's expectation from the public that council take a stand on this one. So I really I would agree with Councillor Chan. If this doesn't warrant a time sensitive or emergency matter, I would more than happy to move a motion to waive the procedural bylaw to put this motion on the agenda. I think it's prudent for council to at least talk about it instead of just scrub it under the carpet. So I don't know. I would listen to the chair direction. If it's needed, I would be more than happy to move a motion to waive the procedural bylaw and put this motion on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Yu. Councillor Barrows.
We've determined, based on our procedural bylaw, that this does not meet the definition. We've heard from the clerk and we've heard from the city solicitor that they're moot on a position. But we've seen before where the city solicitor has said, no, there's impending lawsuits that we need to discuss this now. There's been times when the clerk has stepped outside of the definition to allow us as members of council to understand the importance of why a certain motion should be looked at that day. The mayor had many opportunities, as it was said before. He could have presented a motion, well, maybe not as polished as he would have liked, so that the members of the public and everyone would have had an opportunity to know that we're going to discuss this today. It would have given staff an opportunity to prepare themselves to make a presentation. I'm not saying that this issue is not important. Don't misunderstand me for a second. This is a very important issue that I don't think should just be spoken about on the fly. So if the mayor believes that this is so desperate and dire, I would suggest that he backtrack at this point, commit to organizing staff, creating a special council meeting dedicated. We have a lot of important issues on this agenda to speak about. Set up a special meeting just for this one issue so that we can hear directly from staff as to what's transpired to this date, so that we can then have a fulsome discussion. And then if there's members of public that want to come and delegate, they can come and delegate and give us their input. But we've completely cut the public out of this debate today. And I know that is not the mayor's intention. I know the mayor has solid feelings when it comes to the public and their input. So that would be my suggestion. Let's set up a meeting for either later this week or the beginning of next to dedicate a day so that staff can speak to us. We can then have fulsome debate on this very, very important application. That would be my suggestion. Mr. Mayor, would you be willing to do that so that we could have that proper, fulsome debate?
No, I believe that this is tomorrow. 3 members of this council have regional council, and on Friday there is a meeting scheduled with Infrastructure Ontario. So this is what I'm talking about the time-sensitive nature of this matter. So I believe that this is the best way for us to be able to move this forward. It's certainly not the ideal way, but given the circumstances that we have at the moment, I believe this is the best way forward.
So this is just, we've just got to take this at face value. There's been no staff input here. You haven't, asked Mr. Kwan to speak to this at all. They haven't been, they're not prepared with a staff report to give us their opinions. We're just going to start randomly talking about it. It's sad that this is how we're starting. I would have thought we could have started on a different note, but so be it.
Okay, Councillor Munch.
Good day. Okay, so I'd like to confirm, has there been, we've heard that February 23rd is the deadline imposed by somebody. Has there been a communication of some form to say that February 23rd is the date? Where did that, because it's not in the correspondence and it's no attaching area. That if it is, I'd like to know. So I have several questions I want to ask from there. So is there a communication from the province saying that we have a deadline of February 23rd?
Commissioner Kwan, do you have communication for a deadline for comments on this TOC? Mayor West, maybe offhand?
I will defer to Commissioner Kwan, but it is my understanding that the province is looking at that as the deadline for commenting.
Okay, Acting City Manager Jocelyn, I see you're on the screen. Can you answer that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I actually have Anthony Arillo on the panel, and I think it's appropriate for Anthony to weigh in terms of the timelines and the deadlines.
Okay, Mr. Iarulo.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the deadlines associated with this project have been stated by the province. The province intends to achieve zoning certainty by March 1st, 2022, and has been actively engaging both staff and members of council to receive comment. We've been, as the mayor stated, providing comment throughout the process. And what I can say is the window for which the city has an opportunity, council has an opportunity to take a position, provide that position to the province, and then have the province consider that position prior to March 1st, when it intends to secure zoning certainty, given its current stated timelines, is extremely tight. And so I know that there's a number of discussions, and there has been a request through the mayor's office to establish priorities for future discussion that have landed in terms of conversations even to the Friday discussion that Mayor West has indicated.
Yeah.
There's no time sensitive issue. We need staff input.
Councillor Munch, go ahead.
So thank you. Give more information, which is why this approach of governing and why we have a procedural bylaw and why we believe in open and transparent government responding protocol that is responsible way. So I'm going to ask again, is there a deadline piece of paper? We just heard March 1st. March 1st is after February 23rd. February 23rd is the next scheduled council meeting. February 23rd, had we acted then, would still meet, should council act, the deadline by the province. So we have today, we could have last Wednesday, up until last Thursday, in fact, the mayor has the opportunity. So the discussion now is that the last 48 hours, a motion was brought forward to discuss it in council, even though we have a council meeting before the deadline of which we can act. We just heard now from our staff a further engagement of what they've been discussing, but we don't have any information in front of us on what staff actually discussed. So how do we know that we're going to move forwards that's not in contrast to what staff are doing? And I say to you to try to debate this on the fly, as we just had second rounds, and we have one member of council saying we're going to waive our procedural bylaw for no rational reason outside that we want to do it today. Yet we know that this has been going on for a long time. We've been told verbally, with no information given to council on any updates on what the position was of staff on behalf of the corporation. We heard that there's a March 1st provincial direction. We have a council meeting on February 23rd. This does not meet any time-sensitive nature. This, by moving today, does not allow the public and others to engage because it was not put on the agenda for full disclosure. I think as a first action, we should be following procedure. For such an important matter, we should have a wholesome dialogue. I have not heard any member of council say that they do not want a wholesome dialogue. So this is not about having or not having. The issue is how can we have it the best way possible? And I would suggest to have an engagement with staff, the public, and others, seeing there's been ongoing dialogue. And we already have a scheduled meeting on February 23rd. And there's no time-sensitive nature between now and February 23rd or March 1st. This does no way, shape, or form meets the time-sensitive nature. Number two, it's not the way that we should be governing in open and transparent government. It's not the way we should start council, by doing things on the fly, because I think we should deserve on such an important matter to have a wholesome discussion by all members of council and members of the public. So I'm going to say to you that we heard today, March 1st, from staff, because we haven't got any written documentation. I asked specifically in my earlier question, was there any written correspondence? The answer was, well, no, March 1st is the deadline. Well, we have, and then we heard from the mayor that February 23rd was the deadline, but really he didn't know because he didn't receive or read any confirmation because he had to refer it back from staff. And we heard staff say March 1st. And even if it was February 23rd, we have a council meeting on February 23rd. We can do it then. And then our guidelines are we give 2 weeks, actually 1 week notice. This could have been put forward last Wednesday. And as the mayor approves the agenda, could have been done on Thursday. There's no rationale why this is in front of us today. And I don't think we should start this way by saying, we're just going to do it because we want to do it today. Well, why don't we move everything? Like every day we're going to just decide what we're going to do? We should follow an open and transparent, professional approach. We should get as much information as we can so that we can have a wholesome debate, which we can't believe that we're debating a procedural guideline, that we want to go around that procedural guideline when we know there is no deadline. The deadline of today of
time's up, Councillor Munch.
Sorry?
Time's up there, Councillor Munch.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we've completed a second round. I'm just going to speak very briefly. I think this does meet the definition of an emergency time-sensitive matter. This is a significant financial impact. There is a deadline. There's a deadline of March 1st that the province is going to force a zoning on this municipality. It is significant. It is financial. It is emergency. There's health implications and every other thing. And what we're talking about giving the province 3 weeks to consider council's opinion or 1 week. There is no question. We cannot take in a position 1 week before that this is implemented. I'm ignoring the points of order because I'm assuming you're only objecting to what I'm saying and not. In fact, I've done something procedurally incorrect. Councillor Barrows. Councillor Barrows, you have a point of order?
I do have a point of order. Thank you. So it would appear at this point in time that the speaker is again presenting mistruths. And I would ask you to correct the speaker in mistruths. There is no financial deadline for the city of Richmond Hill to make a payment of any such sort. So for you to misguide people into thinking that if we don't act now, financially, the corporation of the city of Richmond Hill is at risk is nothing but a bold-faced lie. And you need to correct that, Mr. Chair.
I stated that this is a significant financial impact to the city with a deadline pending.
So
And
what will happen to us
I
financially
support-
on that day?
Therefore, I support
on that day?
the introduction of the matter on a time-sensitive basis.
You can't explain it because you don't know.
That's merely your commentary. And you always have commentary when I have the floor. I don't know why, but that's not a point of order, and that's not why we have points of order. Procedurally, it is my turn to speak. I am emphasizing and reiterating that I believe this is a significant financial impact on the municipality, that it is of a time-sensitive nature because of the deadline imposed by the province, that it meets the emergency definition that was read into the record regarding the health impacts and every other way that we will be impacted. So that's how I will cast my vote. Again, I want it to be recorded. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And then Mayor West, you have an opportunity for a 3-minute wrap up if you choose.
Thank you. Just very quickly, this is following the procedure the way I understand it. And, you know, I understand and respect that a couple of members don't feel that that's the case. It is up to council to decide whether we do this. We have done emergency and time-sensitive matters before, which, and frankly, there have been a couple of occasions where they were much further from the mark than I would have expected them to be, and they were approved. But however, having said that, the most important part about this is that I believe that this is an incredibly important thing for Richmond Hill. Maybe possibly one of the most important things that has been occurred in Richmond Hill for many, many decades that I can think of. We need to get this right. And what I'm asking council for today, and it is in a bit of a hurry for sure, but what I'm asking council for is a confirmation.
Sorry, Mayor West, I have a point of order from Councillor Barrows.
Well, it wasn't a direct comment to staff. The staff's reputation is on the line now, and I would ask the mayor to retract his last statements. What's happening now is we do not have a staff report. Staff have not brought to the first meeting of council an update on this situation, nor a request for us to make some sort of direction for them to continue. It is the mayor's decision that what the staff have been doing is not to his liking, and he now wants to interject.
No.
I find that offensive. I think our staff should be protected. Our staff should be protected.
Mayor West, before I take your point of order, I'm going to rule. Councillor Barrows, again, you're just disagreeing with the speaker. The speaker is well within his rights. He has the floor. Mayor West, you have a point of order?
That's not in any way, shape, or form what I said, Councillor Barrows. You're twisting my words. And you know, the only thing I would say is that staff did, as we all know on council, put out a memo a few weeks ago outlining some of the concerns. And that is, you know, they've been doing a fantastic job in moving this process along right from the very beginning. And so in no way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point of order and on your point of order. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli, you have a point of order? Something procedurally we're not following. You know, Mayor West is wrapping up.
Yes. First off, Mr. Chairman, I'll ask you that I want to challenge your ruling to mute my microphone. I had to frantically go to find a piece of paper because you muted my microphone. So I challenge your ruling and I want the ban lifted on my microphone being turned off, please.
Okay. So that's your point of order.
Yeah, I'm challenging your ruling, sir, that you instructed the clerk to mute my microphone. I want it unmuted so that I have the same opportunity as everyone else to interrupt, as Mayor West did with his point of order. I want the same opportunity to interrupt vocally so that I don't have to hold up a piece of paper.
You want to interrupt vocally. Okay. So let's just put that to a vote. I ruled that the two speakers' microphones be muted so they were not interrupting as I spoke. I really only meant it to be for that time, not a ban on their microphones, but Mr. Clerk,
just lift the ban because you gave the ban. Now lift it.
Well, it was for the duration of my speaking. I mean, if you have points of order, you have points of order, and you've always been acknowledged. I think every time I've chaired the meeting, I've acknowledged you every time, as I have right now with your point of order. You can raise your hand. I haven't missed anyone with their hands up, you know, that want to interject, but keep your point of order cards. If you want to interrupt, make sure you're holding up the cards. Mayor West has the floor.
No. I need a ruling on the banning of cutting down the microphone.
I've lifted the ban. I had it.
Thank you.
It was a temporary ban. Okay, Mayor West, go ahead.
I have no idea where I was. Anyway, thank you for the consideration, council. You know, it's up to council to decide. As I said, I think this is very, very important, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Clerk, could you call the roll, please, on this motion?
Thank you. Voting on the motion to add a time-sensitive members motion to the agenda. Regional and Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Munch.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Barros.
No.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Absolutely not.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion to add the time-sensitive matter does carry.
Okay, thank you. So I will resume the chair. Thank you, Deputy Mayor DiPaolo. The next item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. So we've been doing this now for an hour, so let's actually get the agenda adopted. Councillor Pirelli, you have a request to speak. You are identifying, are you moving to adopt the agenda?
Is it my turn to speak?
Yes, sir.
Thank
We're
you.
looking for a motion to adopt the agenda at this time.
Not particularly concerned with what you're looking for. I want to move the adoption of the agenda without the emergency time-sensitive portion. That is my motion.
Mr. Clerk, I'll look to you to advise on whether that's procedurally possible, given that we just voted in favor of putting it on the agenda.
To you, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. This question has not come up before. Certainly, council has just passed a motion to add this matter to the agenda. To now make a motion without something that council already decided to do would, on the face of it, appear to be contrary to what council's already decided to do. It's ultimately up to council to decide if that is in order, or if such a motion, considering council's previous decision, would actually be contrary to its decision and subject to reconsideration.
Like I said, my motion is to adopt the agenda without the addition of this emergency time-sensitive matter because of its illegality. Thank you. I'll look for a seconder, please, and thank you. And I'll continue once the seconder has spoken.
That's out of order, Councillor Pirelli. I'm sorry. The clerk made that, I think, explained that fairly well. There is, we've just moved to put that item on the agenda.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I have a question. Who just advised you to rule it out of order? So that isn't your independent thought.
Mr. Clerk was speaking just a minute ago and made it pretty clear.
No. We heard on the recording, Mr. Mayor, just before you said that, they said rule it out of order. Who gave you the direction?
I'll take that.
Mr. Clerk.
So the clerk wouldn't.
I'm asking Mr. Clerk to
hold on a second.
No,
so the clerk, when asked in a public forum, gave a different answer than he gave privately. This is cause for concern. I am flabbergasted. I am flabbergasted.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was through you. I was asked, and I said the chair. And if it was not clear at the microphone, I said the chair could rule it out of order. That was, the chair looked to me. I said you could rule it out of order, and it was ultimately up to the chair to decide.
Thank you, Mr. Pirelli.
Sorry, what is your ruling now?
I'm ruling it out of order. We've just before this added it to the agenda. It is not appropriate at this time to be adopting the agenda without something that we just added a moment ago.
So it's a fait accompli. There's really no question in asking if we're going to adopt the agenda if one can't make an amendment to the agenda. You're saying we have no choice.
No, we are adopting the agenda with the addition of the item that we
Then why call the question if it's not debatable?
I'm looking for a motion right now to adopt the agenda.
Well, I gave you a
your card up. I'm
motion to
asking you to
adopt the
speak.
agenda without that emergency time sensitive.
I'm ruling that out of order.
Okay, I'll challenge your ruling.
Okay, there's a challenge to the chair.
Anybody want to speak to it?
Okay, Mr. Clerk, recorded vote has been called.
Thank you. To members of council, the chair has ruled that Regional Local Councillor Pirelli's motion is out of order. If you agree with the chair's ruling, vote yes. If you do not agree with the chair's ruling, vote no. Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Barros.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Abstain.
Which counts as a no. Councillor Munch.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. The chair's ruling stands.
Okay, at this time, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Silovitz, seconded by Regional Local Councillor DePaulo. All those in request to speak, Councillor Pirelli.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the procedural bylaw. It's an interesting question to approve an agenda. Agendas set the foundation for what we're going to do for the rest of the day. And I think it's important. Councillor Barros, I don't appreciate that smirk. If you could just wipe that, please, I appreciate it. I'd like my clock to restart. This is offensive.
Councillor Pirelli, continue with your comments, please.
Oh, thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, some people may think that an agenda is something that should be quickly and easily adopted without giving great thought and consideration to all the issues that can come forward and out of a simple thing, an act that can be considered a simple action like an adoption of an agenda. Adopting means accepting, taking in something that really wasn't yours. And we're going to take that in and we're going to embrace it as our own. And when I look through the agenda today, I say to myself, well, how many of these items can I honestly and sincerely adopt? Now, it's been ruled, that I wasn't allowed to make an amendment to that it was suggested that the ruling should be, as they say, a fait complet. And my French, pardon my French if I've offended any French-speaking people. But the reality is that an agenda is something that requires serious consideration. We have how many agenda items here today? Just bear with me for a second here. According to my assistant, we have 19 agenda items here, and including members' motion, plus members' motion, plus 3 members' motion, and 19 and 3 is 22. And 22 issues. We need, whenever we are about to adopt an agenda, we need to seriously consider each and every one of those agenda items. And because what's important is that we show the public, as far as I'm concerned, my #1 priority is to make sure that the public and staff, our very respected staff members, are consulted. And as I look through these agenda items, it is based on an assumption, the assumption that each and every issue will be carefully considered by members of council. And in order to make that decision, that consultation, and get the best possible outcome, it's imperative that all members of staff be present. As we know, the agenda, when it's set out, has all appropriate members of staff in attendance. I know with one of these issues that was recently added to the agenda that we're about to vote on, my question is to myself is, are the appropriate members of staff going to be in attendance for council to ask very relevant questions and get those very relevant answers? My fear is that maybe we won't have the opportunity to ask those questions. More importantly, is that anytime this council deliberates on any issue, it is imperative that we understand and respect the wish and the right of our residents to participate fully in the procedures. And today, on one of those agenda items, we won't have the benefit of making a fulsome decision because the public will not have the opportunity to participate.
I would ask you to wrap up. Councillor Pirelli, your time is up.
Thank you. One more second. So we won't have the residents won't have the right to participate, but more importantly, well, not more importantly, but as important, we're not certain that the members of staff that we need to ask those really relevant questions, such an important agenda item, may not be there. So in good conscience, I cannot adopt the agenda.
Okay, Councillor Pirelli, I understand. Thank you for your comments. Your time is up. Is there anybody else that would like to speak at this time? Councillor, Regional Local Councillor DePaulo. You're on, you need to unmute, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I support the agenda as you had put forward. And it's so important for members to respect the public. I think what's most important is to respect the outcome of the most recent election that has put you in charge. Mr. Mayor was clear. That's what the residents of Richmond Hill wanted. And I think you should be supported in the agenda that you brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no, I'm seeing no, oh, sorry, Councillor Munch.
I've said this several times this term, I'm going to say it now. I can't believe this council would choose to want to have a combative approach. I ask you guys and gal, is this really what you want for the rest of the term? To have lengthy meetings, challenges at every level, all because you don't want to work in the best interest of policy and governance, but you want to work on a political front? Obviously, we're going to approve the agenda. But if you guys want to spend hours and hours and hours and meetings after meetings just because that's what you want to do, so be it. We've had this discussion before. I'm hoping we can raise the bar. For those that want law and order, Mr. Chan specifically, when I hear it and others, this is ridiculous. We have a March 1st deadline. We're moving on a time-sensitive nature for zero reason because someone or a group of people will move through the agenda, but this is not going to go away today, tomorrow, next day. If this is what council wants, I don't want it like this, but you're forcing it because those of us that want great government and want responsible approach and want public input and care about, working collaboratively, I'm not seeing it by so many members of the council. When I hear things that are said, there's no entitlement here. Why are some members of council talking about entitlement, about this and that? We're talking about focusing on government and doing what's in the best interest of our community. I'm not seeing it. I'm so sad. The first meeting, this is embarrassing. First public meeting. We've had 2 other meetings. We hope we're learning. I'm not seeing it. This is going to go on for a long time, all because members of council make a decision. If you want to be political to the end of the term, that's your choice, not mine. I don't want that. I ask you, please, let's get to business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Munch. Okay, Councillor Barros.
Thank you so much. I've got a question through the chair to I guess, either Mr. Kwan, Mr. Aiello, or our city solicitor. We have an item that has been placed on the agenda today as emergency time sensitive. My question is, as we go to proceed with this agenda, should that item be in camera? Are there commitments that have been made by the city that have already been in discussions with IO that we don't want to be publicly embarrassing the staff by perhaps taking a different train of thought? So the question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the staff is, should this be put on the in-camera session of the agenda so that we can hear what's transpired thus far and what options we actually do have going forward, so that we're not we're not looking to be fighting with our staff, because as I've said before, staff didn't bring a report to this meeting. This is the first public meeting that staff would have had the opportunity. So I'm kind of, it's delicate. I don't want to be putting staff in an awkward position, but their lack of bringing a staff report tells me that things are going well at the province with this transit-oriented community. So through you to staff, can we have some kind of indication as should we be moving this to the in-camera portion?
I'll leave it up to staff as to who would like to answer that. I see Mr. Aiello coming on. Mr. Aiello, would you like to take a stab at that?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So to be clear, staff have not been negotiating terms for a transit-oriented communities proposal. Staff has been meeting with the province and the landowner to support alignment to the emerging secondary plan. And all of the feedback that we've been providing is backstops at the secondary plan. And so we've provided council with an update through the council briefing note that's been previously referenced in terms of where the alignment point sits. But in terms of our discussions with the landowners, our focus has not been on negotiating terms and providing concessions. It's really been focused on providing an alignment point for the TOC program to move forward vis-a-vis the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan.
If I recall correctly, those memos were given to us and it said not for public consumption. Am I mistaking that for another document you'd sent out?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the information regarding alignment between the secondary plan and the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan and the TOC proposal are referencing two public plans that have been made public both by the province and by the city through its own processes. And so the information within those tables are really referencing a factual evaluation of the TOC program vis-a-vis the secondary plan. There may have been timelines at the time that hadn't been publicized by the province within those briefing notes that we were trying to protect for confidentiality, but the discussions around alignment are not intended to be confidential. In fact, they're referencing public plans that everyone can see and open and review and provide that type of analysis if they have the ability.
Okay, thank you for that. When we're putting this item on the agenda, perhaps in that discussion, I know that the city was trying to get IO to actually discuss with all members of council. And it was determined at such a time that no, only a couple of members of council would get the privilege. So I feel like having a discussion on today's agenda puts everyone else at a disadvantage because we all haven't had an opportunity to be fully briefed by the province on their plan. And we've all received this motion just as a surprise. Here it is. So can someone, speak to the appropriateness of giving me more of a comfort in approving this agenda with that included? Are we just going to be spinning our wheels in a discussion there? Mr. Arrulo?
Mr. Irulo, unfortunately, before you begin, Councillor Pirelli has a point of order. Councillor Pirelli.
Thank you. Procedurally speaking, Mr. Chairman, I think it would be appropriate that we ask this question of our legal department. It was stated earlier by Councillor De Paula that we have a significant financial problem ahead. That is not something that we should be discussing in open session. I would be happy to support or second the motion that says we discussed this in camera under the circumstances.
Is that a question? Because that's not really a point of order.
Well, yeah, procedurally speaking, I think what Councillor Barros should be speaking to is moving a motion.
Well, so that's not a point of order, Councillor Pirelli. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Councillor Barros,
I forgive you.
If I'm not mistaken, you have the chair.
Thank you. So I'm chairing. I'm chairing.
My apologies, Councillor Barros. You have the floor.
Oh, I have the floor.
Oh,
sorry, Mr. Pirelli. I'm not chairing at this point. I just have the floor.
Let's get on with the agenda. Councillor, go ahead.
So I would like to move an amendment to this agenda, and the amendment be that the emergency time sensitive be placed on the in-camera portion so that we can understand the seriousness of what Mr. De Paula was trying to explain and what Mr. West was trying to explain, that there are serious financial and contractual issues at stake here, which is why we need to be discussing this. So I think that discussion should start in camera so that we can be briefed by our solicitor as to the legalities of what's coming down the pipe. And then after that, perhaps we can then go to the public session to then actually discuss it further. Or at that point, we might find out in camera that it's not as an emergency as we once thought, and it could be then to be deferred to the next council meeting.
Okay,
so
that's your amendment?
That's my amendment, that we place it on the in-camera portion to begin with.
Okay, so we have an amendment proposed on the floor. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Pirelli, are you going to be seconding the amendment?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman.
I was actually, Councillor Pirelli, before you start, I'm asking, are you going to be seconding the amendment? I'm looking for a seconder before we speak.
Well, that's what I was speaking. That's what I was speaking to.
Well, I'm asking, are you seconding it? Yes or no?
Well, if you'd let me finish,
Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, I'm asking you, Councillor Pirelli. I'm asking you.
Again, you interrupted me.
I'm sorry, but what I was asking for is we need a seconder to have this on the floor. If you're willing to second it, then that's fine. Go ahead and speak. But otherwise, I'm looking for somebody to second the motion, second the amendment. Are you willing to second it?
So the second amendment? Sorry, I would like to second Councillor Barros's amendment.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I have to agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Barros. It was stated in arguing the position of why this meets the definition of emergency and time sensitive. And if you hear the comments made by certain members of council, it would lead us immediately to the conclusion that we do not discuss financial implications, contractual implications in public. So if this is going to be discussed in open session, wow, that's either one of two things is happening. Either this council really doesn't care about following any rules.
Councillor Pirelli, that's a very disparaging comment. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's not appropriate.
Oh, well, thank you. Now you've interrupted me, and it's very inappropriate to interrupt people when they're speaking. The comments that were made to bring this into the agenda today as emergency time sensitive would lead to the fact that we need to bring this in camera. The comments that were made were heard by everyone. It is financial, significantly financial, and it's contractual, and a whole host of other things. And if that is the case, I'd like to hear about it. I don't agree with it, but it now needs to go in camera, because I, for one, will not discuss any financial implications to the city in open session and giving our position away, our leverage, as it were. I'm interested to hear those financial and significantly financial challenges that we're going to face in camera. I'd like the opportunity at that time to engage with our legal counsel as to what our strategy should be to try and thwart this financial, significant financial occurrence that's going to happen to us, as well as I'd really like to see the contract, because it was cited that there's a contract, a contractual obligation, and I would really like to see that contract. I don't think I could ask for that contract in open session. I think that would be highly inappropriate. And for those reasons, I have to completely support Councillor Barros' amendment. And I really hope that council, my colleagues, start to listen to what's being said here, because, you know, when we talk about in the last 9 or 10 months, we've been talking about council dysfunctionality. This is it. When you don't follow the rules and you try and skirt the rules and you do things like this is what happens. You create an environment where, what's the word?
Hey, Councillor Pirelli, your time is up. Is there, I think at this point in time, Mr. Clerk wanted to clarify something with the amendment.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the mover. As council is well aware, it can only go into closed session if there is a reason that's acceptable under Section 239 of the Act, for instance, personnel matters or labor relations. I have heard that council wanted to go into closed session to receive legal advice. Is that the motion, Councillor? Because we do have to state the reason as part of the agenda.
It certainly is, because the reason that we were given that it was emergency time sensitive was because of a contractual arrangement.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barros.
I've been asked a question that I'd like to continue answering. You've decided that I've answered.
Excuse me, we need to move on with this. So answer the question very quickly, and then we'll move on to any other speakers.
So I believe, to start again, I believe that the reason we added this was because of a contractual arrangement and because of an impending financial hardship. So those are things that we definitely need to hear from our solicitor in camera on. So I apologize if I didn't clearly articulate that when I started, but I know that Mr. Clerk is always on the ball and ready to translate.
Okay, is there anybody else on the first round then on the amendment? Seeing none, point of order from Councillor Pirelli.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can I ask that the motion, I think the motion has been changed now, can the motion be put on the screen so we can all read it? Because I thought I was speaking to something else, and I'd like an opportunity to speak to this new motion, this new amendment.
You can have a second round to speak. I saw your card, Mr. Clerk. Can we put that up on the screen? Okay, we have that on the screen now. Can everybody see that? Okay, Councillor Pirelli, you have the floor.
Sorry, is this on the first or a second?
This is a second round.
Then I withdraw my second of the motion, because this is not the motion that I was seconding. And since I have the floor, I would like to move an amendment.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. And just for clarity, Mr. Chairman, and maybe with the guidance of the clerk, if we could put the motion back on the screen, Mr. Heike, I would really appreciate it. As you've always guided us, Mr. Clerk, we have to be very specific when we go in camera. We cannot discuss things in camera unless we have made it very clear, crystal clear. So through you, Mr. Chair, to the clerk, is that the case for the public knowledge, that if we don't specifically state the reasons here, that we cannot discuss them then in closed session? Is that correct, Mr. Clerk, through you, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. I apologize if I'm not quite understanding the question.
Happy to repeat it.
So I was just actually, because I'm hoping I can answer it, but I'm more than happy for you to clarify. So the Municipal Act requires, before council go into closed session, that it have one of the acceptable reasons under the act to go into closed session. So for instance, as appears on your screen, one of them would be to receive advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. That's one of the reasons that is permissible under the Act, to hold a meeting in the absence of the public. And council has to state the reason for going to closed session and the general nature of the matter to be discussed. That's why all our motions to go into closed session actually make reference to the Municipal Act exemptions to the open meeting rules and the general nature. Yes, once council is in closed session, it is limited to discussing what it went into closed session for. I hope that answers your question, Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
As always, you do an excellent job of explaining it. I guess my question is that I want to make sure that once we get in camera, that we're not breaking any of the rules. And so the question to you is, Mr. Clerk, through the chair, is do I need to add in here anything towards speaking about identifiable individuals, because we may be speaking about certain members of staff? And because there's contractual questions, do we need to talk about any labor issues? And do we need to identify that in the motion?
Mr. Clerk.
That's a difficult question for me to advise on, because I don't know exactly what the discussion would be in closed session. As I understand the motion that Councillor Barrows put forward, it was to take the member's motion.
Mr. Clerk, my apologies for interrupting you. Councillor Barrows' motion is no longer on the floor. I am moving, his amendment is no longer on the floor. It is my amendment that I'm going to make, and I'm trying to make sure that I identify everything in my amendment so that council can give great consideration, because if we do decide to go into camera, then I want to make sure we're able to discuss all of the items without having to come out of camera, discuss them, and then go back into camera. So I just want to make sure, because I don't know what we're going to be discussing in this motion, because again, we don't know the details, but I want to cover every contingency possible, because there was a few things mentioned. We have financial implications and contractual implications, and we're going to need legal advice. We're going to need to talk about staff. We're going to need to talk about potentially identifiable individuals. And we're going to talk about potentially any labor relations. So I just want that reflected in my motion, Mr. Clerk.
You know, if I may, this is not a catch-all that you can go in and just talk about whatever you want, Councillor. If you have a motion to make, then make it now. We've been going at this now for quite some time. And we still don't have the agenda adopted.
Point of order.
Councillor Barros, point of order.
Thank you. Procedurally, you can't make an amendment of an amendment.
No, there is no amendment. He's
I made
withdrawing
an-
his second.
That's
of the-
fine.
Of your amendment.
Procedurally, I didn't hear you ask if anyone else would like to second my amendment. My amendment's still on the floor until such time that you.
Is there any, is
that
there?
no one else is
Thank
going
you,
to
Councillor
second it.
Barros. That's a valid point of order. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to second the original amendment by Councillor Barros? Seeing none, Councillor Pirelli, you have an amendment and you have a limited time left, so go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, with the greatest of respect, I've been asking questions of the clerk.
And that's fine. You have 5 minutes like everybody else. Go ahead.
Well, so let's start the clock when.
No,
when my
no,
motion
we're not
takes
starting the
effect.
clock. We've already started it. Councillor Pirelli,
Okay,
go ahead.
Okay. Question. Clock stops when I ask a question. Question is, to the clerk, can you please put up my motion as I've reflected it?
If you would give me a moment, and before I do, I would just ask clarification. As I heard, Councillor, you wish to have this matter in closed session for personal matters about identifiable individuals, employee and labor relations, and advice subject to solicitor-client privilege or legal advice?
Yes, and financial and contractual implications, as well as financial.
I would comment that there is, to my knowledge, not an exemption for contractual. I'm just looking at the act right now to check it. Nope. Thank you. In my read of the legislation, there is not specifically a reason for financial implications or contractual implications.
Right. So we'll limit it to the 3 items that you mentioned, Mr. Clerk. Thank you for your guidance. Identifiable individuals, solicitor-client privilege, and what was the third one?
I believe you said employee and labor relations.
Employee and labor relations, because financial and contractual are not in the act and not at our disposal to use those as valid reasons for going in camera. So employee relations, identifiable individuals, and solicitor-client privilege. Those are the 3 items. If you could reflect that in the motion, then I'll speak to it. If we can get that on the screen.
Okay, Councillor Pirelli, you have the floor for your remaining time. You have a point of order on yourself?
Yeah, no, on your comment. You said that I have the floor, and procedurally, I believe, Mr. Chairman, that we need a seconder before I can start speaking to this, or would you like me to speak about it?
You can finish your time and then we will ask for a seconder.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, so colleagues, it is abundantly clear how we got to this stage of our council meeting. Well, we had a very lengthy discussion about the viability of adding an emergency time-sensitive issue to the agenda today. Now, I guess the public really needs to know that it's important that we don't violate the act, that we don't discuss in open session things that should be in closed session, as well as we don't go into camera to discuss things that should be discussed in open session. When a motion is made emergency time sensitive and we don't have a lot of details, I guess we have to rely on the debate, the democratic process of discussing the viability of adding something to the agenda. During those conversations, it was determined, well, actually it was stated by certain members of council in a way to rationalize and justify their position to add it to the agenda, that certain commentary was made. Now, once that commentary was made, we can't erase it from the record. So the fact that there is some kind of significant financial issue and a contractual issue, as stated by the deputy mayor, I just want the public to know, Mr. Chairman, that we are not permitted to, we have a fiduciary duty to the corporation. We have to make sure that we don't disadvantage the corporation, which means disadvantaging the residents of Richmond Hill. If we were to be—
Okay, your time is up, Councillor Pirelli. Can you wrap up very quickly, please?
I thought I had 5 minutes.
You did, go ahead. Your time is up.
I was only speaking
Wrap
for
up.
2 minutes.
If you could wrap up, please.
I didn't even see a timesheet go up. There's no warning. 1 minute.
According to the clerk, your time is up. Finish up, please, and we'll be asking for a seconder.
All right, if my time's up, I
Point of order.
Okay, I'm looking at this point for a seconder.
Point of order. Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, point of order, regional local councillor Paul.
This is an amendment where you can only speak once for 3 minutes, right? That's what we're doing?
Right. That's right. Go ahead, Councillor. Is there a councillor that will second this motion or this amendment on the floor? Councillor Barros, go ahead.
I've got a question.
No, before you ask that, are you willing to second this?
Okay, I'll second it for discussion, sure.
Go ahead.
And I have a question then to the mover. Oh, wait, I lost the motion. Where did it go? It was on my screen a moment ago. I can't see the motion anymore.
It's coming back up.
Thank you. To the mover, can you explain a bit more when you talk about personnel matters, about identifiable individuals, labor relations, or employee negotiations? Can you explain in a bit more detail how that actually plays into a planning matter? Through the chair.
Go ahead, Councillor Pirelli.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely, Councillor Barros. Look, if we're going in camera, we have to make sure that we're following the rules. I don't want to go in camera and find out that we're going to discuss something that we otherwise should not be discussing. because we're not sure of what this motion is going to be, we have a lot of questions that were brought up during the debate on whether we should add it as an emergency time-sensitive matter. Just the words emergency and time-sensitive say to the public, you know, there's something serious going on here. And when you further exacerbate that with the fact that there was mention of a significant financial problem for the city and or contractual obligations, I'd like to explore those in order to have an opportunity to explore those issues. We cannot speak about them unless they're here in the motion. So,
Councillor Pirelli, if you could wrap up, this is not an unlimited time to speak. It was a question. Go ahead and wrap up so that we can move on with the rest of Councillor Barros's time.
I'm sorry. I'm answering the question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and I'm asking you to answer the question and get to the end of the answer as quickly as you can so that we can get back to Councillor Barros.
I'm trying my best, Mr. Chairman. Personnel matters. So as you pointed out during our previous discussion, Councillor Barros, is that one of the staff members spoke up. Now, are we going to be speaking, again, not knowing what the motion is going to be, knowing that no notice of motion was ever given so that we could digest those kind of questions? We're now going to go into an in-camera session, and I want to be able to have the opportunity, right, to discuss whether staff have, in fact, I mean, I'm even nervous about speaking about it in open session. You know, did staff do what staff were supposed to do? And if at some point we discover that there was, you know, a ball dropped, as it were, not identifying.
Councillor Pirelli, I think you're getting very close, as you said, to the line here. So I think you've answered the question. Councillor Barros, you could have the rest of your time to finish up, the rest of your 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think this is an appropriate way to move forward, and I thank the motion mover for the detail. The only other thing that, before I vote, Mr. Chair, I do need to get a bit more clarity on is it says including communications necessary for that purpose. So to the mover, is there communications that we're expecting staff to be bringing to us in camera?
Councillor Barros, I'm sorry.
Could you explain that in a bit more detail, please?
Mr. Clerk actually added that in, and I think that's fairly standard wording, but I would direct that question to Mr. Hike.
Well, no, it's Mr. Pirelli moved the motion.
Mr. Pirelli didn't write those words at the end. Mr. Hike, could you answer that, please?
So you're suggesting that it's now Mr. Hike's motion and he should answer my question?
No, you're asking a question. I'm asking Mr. Hike to answer that question. Mr. Hike, go ahead.
But I directed the question to the mover of the motion.
I know, but I'm asking Mr. Hike to answer it because he was the one that wrote those words, and I have seen those words as standard practice in other motions. Mr. Hike.
I can confirm it, Mr. Mayor, that those are the words right from the Municipal Act.
Thank you.
That is why they are included.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barros, finish up.
Thank you. To the mover of the motion, including communications necessary for that purpose, was that your intent, that it just be a boilerplate as per the Municipal Act? I just need clarity here, Mr. Mayor, just so I can, in good conscience, I can vote.
Go ahead, Mr. Pirelli.
Thank you. You catch me at a disadvantage, Councillor Barros. I believe that we don't have a choice. We need, the whole purpose of this exercise is to make sure that what we're doing is legal. And if the clerk is telling me that this is part of the legality to making it legal, I guess your question would be better directed to the clerk and ask him and say, if I were, because those weren't my words. obviously.
so thank you, Regional
Can I
Councillor
finish,
Pirelli.
please? Can I finish, please?
If it's going to be quickly, yes. Go ahead.
So thank you. So I think, Councillor Barrows, the question would be better directed to the clerk to ask him if I removed that portion, because that was not part of my motion, would I now be in violation of the act? So
Okay.
that's my recommendation to you.
Councillor Barrows.
Okay, then. I think that we've got all the requisite items in this motion. I'm happy to second it. And I trust that all members of council should be in a position to support it so as to protect the integrity of the corporation and the discussions that may come out of this. And I wholly believe that afterwards we would come into the public realm with a fulsome discussion, or perhaps a series of dates to have such fulsome discussions. Thank you.
Councillor DiPaolo, I'm not sure whether you were on this. You're okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm against this. I really don't support going into camera. Going into cameras for labor relations and identifiable individuals, so we don't want to embarrass anyone, and we don't want to compromise ourselves in a contract. So there's no contract here. I've never said the word contract. I don't understand labor employer relations, or who would be embarrassed other than Doug Ford for imposing this on Richmond Hill. It's a major planning issue that needs to be discussed in public by this council. So I am against going into camera on this.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other speakers on the amendment? Seeing none, I don't believe that it is necessary to go into camera on this. That was never in any of the lead up and research I've done on this motion. That was never ever the intent. I don't believe that it is necessary. So with that, seeing no other speakers, no, there's only one round on an amendment. Councillor Pirelli, I'm sorry.
Wrap up?
No, there's no wrap up on this. So there's been a recorded vote that's been called by Councillor Silovitz. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Voting on the amendment, moved by Regional Local Councillor Pirelli. Councillor Silovitz.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Barrows.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Munch. Councillor Munch, please.
I'm gonna do no, although.
Thank you.
Nice.
Mayor West.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
No.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DiPaolo.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
No.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes, please.
Thank you. The amendment fails to carry.
Okay, thank you. So we are back to the adoption of the agenda. And I'm sorry, it was a while ago. Could you remind me, Mr. Clerk, we had a mover. I think it might have been Councillor Silovitz, and was the seconder Councillor Chan.
Mr. Chair, the seconder was Regional Local Councillor DiPaolo.
Okay, my apologies. So we have a motion to adopt the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed? Recorded vote has been called. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Voting on the motion to adopt the agenda, Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Barrows.
Yes for some, no for the added one.
Sorry. Councillor, the vote has been called. It's either a yes or a no. I apologize. I can't record mixed votes.
Can it be separated then, please, Mr. Mayor?
No. I can't.
Well, it can be separated. We could vote on this item separately from the rest.
you know, the thing is that
You're
we've
the chair.
added this.
You can.
Yeah, no,
you can
I don't
correct
think
it
that's
in such a way.
appropriate. We've added this to the agenda. It's already been separated. We're not going to separate it again. That would be my ruling. So at this point, we're asking Councillor Barros for a vote on the adoption of the agenda. We have a point of order from Councillor Pirelli.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate, I'd like to withdraw my answer and support Councillor Barros's request to separate the items. I'm withdrawing my response and request that we separate the emergency time sensitive issue. I think is it 13.1, Mr. Clerk?
Okay.
I'm going from memory.
You know what, in the interest of getting on with this, because we have delegates waiting, we have the public watching, I'm sure that they're not particularly happy with how long this has taken. I'm going to allow the adoption of the agenda with the one item separated. I don't think, honestly, it's necessary because, as I said before, we've already added it to the agenda. So I've heard a request to have all of the items lumped as one, and then the item that was added as an emergency time sensitive matter to be separated. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Want to have a vote on that, or are you looking just for a straw hat?
No, I'm asking if, in an effort to move along with this meeting.
Well, you're the chair. Just say yes.
I have heard from Councillor Barros that we're asking to separate the one item out of the agenda, which was the emergency and time sensitive matter. So we will proceed with voting on the adoption of the entire agenda as a whole without the adoption of the one item, and we will vote on the one item separately. So, Mr. Clerk, a recorded vote has been called on the adoption of the entire agenda with the exception of the one item, the emergency and time sensitive matter that was added.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a request to speak on this from Councillor Silovitz. Councillor Silovitz.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I don't mean to delay this any further, but I don't quite understand why this would be separated. What does that mean when we come to discuss the agenda and when we come to discuss item G?
Okay, that's a good point.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
I don't understand it either. So could I suggest that we ask Mr. Clerk for his advice on this matter?
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. So the motion before you at this time is to adopt the agenda with the various additions which are appearing on your screen as items A through G. A through F are the additions to the agenda that were included on the additions in the revised agenda that was sent out and posted on the website yesterday. Item G would be the time-sensitive motion, which Council has agreed to add to the agenda under introduction of time-sensitive matters. At this time, if the motion were to, if you were to separate out G, you would be voting again on whether to include that item on the agenda. It does require to pass. Does that if it passes, you would consider the time-sensitive matter at the appropriate time in the agenda. If it doesn't, then it would be dropped from the agenda.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. If I may, Councillor Silovitz, I think based on that information, this is not procedurally efficient at all. We've already included this in the agenda. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to suggest that the original thought that I had is valid, that we adopt the agenda in its entirety. That is what Council has done in the majority up to this point. So that would be my ruling. At this point in time, we are looking for adoption of the agenda in its entirety. A recorded vote has been called. Councillor Liu, you had your request to speak, and I'm sorry, Councillor Silovitz, are you finished?
Yes, thank you. With my name moving that, I agree with.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. Councillor Liu, did you have something to add?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I respect your decision not to separate it because I would caution Council. This is going to set a precedent, and moving forward to our future meetings is going to create a lots of problems. So okay. I respect your decision not to separate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Liu, and thank you for that collaboration. So recorded vote, Mr. Hike, for the adoption of the agenda in its entirety.
Thank you. Voting on the motion to adopt the agenda, Councillor Solovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli is absent. Councillor Munch.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Barrows.
Yes to all, no to G.
I apologize, Councillor. I cannot capture that. The chair has ruled that we're voting on all points. I can't split your vote. It's not possible. So I do need either a yes or no answer. I apologize. Councillor Barrows.
Yes, I voted.
I apologize, Councillor. I cannot record that vote. You indicated two different votes. I can only take one vote, yes or no. In the alternative, you could abstain if you're unable to vote yes or no.
And an abstention is a no, and I do not want to vote against all of the other items on the agenda. So my vote stays the same, yes to all, no to G.
Councillor Barrows, I apologize. I cannot take that vote. You must vote either yes or no or abstain. There is no splitting. The chair has ruled that this motion cannot be split. Therefore, you must vote yes or no or abstain. I will say that if you abstain, the minutes will reflect that it was abstention. Yes, it is counted towards no because it's not a yes, but it would reflect an abstention in the minutes. So, Councillor Barrows, please.
I'd like to vote no to G and yes to the other items.
Councillor Barrows, I'm sorry, but
a reverse perspective.
I think that the clerk has been made the necessary statement right now to help for somebody that knows the procedure bylaw as well as you do. I think you probably know that. I have a point of order from Councillor Pirelli. Councillor Pirelli, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, a second point of order, you should apologize to Councillor Barrows for making that disparaging remark. Shame on you.
Councillor Pirelli, go ahead with your point of order.
He's trying to vote his conscience.
Councillor Pirelli.
I had to step away. I want to know what I missed. Are we voting on these separately?
No, we are not. We're voting on the entirety of the adoption of the agenda with all items. Councillor Barrows.
I'm here.
Councillor Barrows, I do require you to cast either a yes or no vote or abstain. It is not possible. The chair has ruled that the motion is not split. I cannot take the vote any other way.
I don't know what other remedy the chair may have, but I'm holding firm on my position.
Okay, well, I guess that means that we're going to have to take an abstention because we can't.
I did not say that.
I know, but we cannot record your vote, Councillor. It's a good question. I mean, logically, it would seem that if you cannot vote, then you have to abstain. That's what the clerk said.
Councillor Barrows, I do require you to vote yes or no or abstain on the motion, please.
I remain firm in my position that the chair had graciously originally given us the opportunity to vote our conscience, and then he decided to change his mind, and I'm not going to change my mind. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to vote no for all of the other items just because I've got one item my conscience doesn't allow me to vote for.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, you did rule that.
Point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Pirelli.
When do I get to vote?
We're getting there.
Oh, okay.
That's not really a point of order, but go ahead, Councillor Barrows. We are asking you to vote.
Mr. Chair, I am very apologetic, Councillor Barrows. I must ask you to vote either yes or no, or to abstain. The chair has ruled that if you're unable to vote, that it will count as an abstention. I do have to take the chair's ruling because the chair is the chair. So I will give you the opportunity, Councillor, to vote yes or no, or abstain on your own, in which case the chair has ruled that you will be counted as an abstention.
Mr. Clerk, there's no need to apologize. It should be I that apologizes. I would like to vote yes for all, no for G. I'm sorry, but that's just my position. I recognize it may give you a bit of angst and difficulty in recording it, but I know at least the recorded vote in the audio and video will clearly articulate the problematic nature of the agenda that's in front of us. So I apologize.
Thank you. In accordance, and I appreciate that, Councillor Barrows, in accordance with the chair's ruling, I am recording your vote as an abstention for the purpose of the minutes and the results.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
Well, in the interest of the getting on to the business, particularly to the 8 delegates, my answer is absolutely yes. Get on with business.
Thank you. And Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. And if I could point out, Regional Local Councillor Prelli, I did call your name 3 times for voting when the voting began in accordance with the vote sheet. In accordance with the procedure bylaw, if you were not there when the name was called, you're counted as absent for the vote. And according to that, the motion to adopt the agenda does carry.
Okay, thank you. All right, so it is almost noon. We have got a whole bunch of people waiting to speak. So I would like to now, at this time, move to the next item, which is disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Councillor Pirelli, do you have a pecuniary interest?
Mr. Mayor, it's noon. I need to eat. I don't want to be disrespectful and eat during a council meeting. I respectfully request that we recess for lunch. I need to eat. I can't think clearly without eating.
Okay, so can I suggest?
I would like to move that we recess for at least an hour and resume at 1 o'clock. I cannot go the rest of the day without eating.
I'm going to ask council if they would like to recess, but what I would ask is that we still have a number of fairly, I'm hoping, fairly straightforward issues that like adoption of the previous council minutes and issues requiring separate discussion. If we could get through that and then at the end of that decide whether we're going to take a recess now or later, I would ask that might be a good way forward. We have general agreement with council to do that.
I didn't understand what you said, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, listen carefully, because what I'm saying is we've got the disclosures of pecuniary interest, we've got adoption of council minutes, we've got identification of items requiring separate discussion, adoption of the remainder of the agenda items, public hearings, which there is none, and then we move on to presentations. My recommendation would be is to deal with all of those things because they can probably be handled fairly quickly, and then council then should consider whether they want to take a break for lunch, which I suspect will be very appropriate. So the next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Is there any? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, moving on. Adoption of previous council minutes, and I would ask if somebody could move all of them, item 7.1, item 7.2, item 7.3, and item 7.4. Councillor Chan, moved by Councillor Chan and seconded by Councillor Liu. All those in favor of adoption of these minutes? Opposed? Okay, that carries only. Identification of items requiring separate discussion. We have in front of us a consent sheet. We've got 13.3 and 13.4 have delegations. 13.7 is a direction that's required. 13.14 is a delegation. 13, 16, 17, 18 can be adopted as on consent. 13, 19 is a request for direction. 14.1 is member motion. 14.2 is member motion. 14.3 is a member motion. We have some bylaws which I'll ask Mr. Clerk to let me know which ones could be adopted on consent, and then we have the added emergency and time-sensitive matter. So, Councillor Pirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'd like them all separated for discussion.
Oh, come on. You're just filibustering. I don't think this is serving our public well, Councillor Pirelli. I think it would be better. Traditionally at this time,
having a fulsome discussion,
traditionally at this time,
having a fulsome discussion on agenda items is what? Filibustering?
No, Councillor Pirelli. Councillor Pirelli, we have a very
not to have discussion.
We have a very long agenda today, and I think it would be prudent if there are items that council members want to discuss, then we would separate them. We do this every single meeting. I don't think that it is appropriate unless there's a good reason to be having to spend the time to talk about every single item. That is very rare, if ever I've seen that happen. I'm having a hard time conceiving that. Which items would you like separated, Councillor Pirelli? You had your hand up.
Order.
Councillor Barros.
Are you suggesting there's something in the procedural bylaw that dictates that if we would like to pull an item from the agenda, we now need to provide rationale as to why we want to?
No, Councillor Barros, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that we have delegates whose time is valuable. They're waiting to be speaking. It's now been 2.5 hours since we started this meeting. And if we do what you're proposing, this meeting will go on for a very, very long time. I don't think that that's appropriate.
Pulled items, Mr. Mayor, will come after the delegates. So it's you right now that's the only one that's keeping us from moving forward in this meeting.
Okay. All right, Councillor Pirelli, go ahead.
I already stated my request, Mr. Chairman.
The additions 13, 16, 17, 19 can all be passed as a group. Would that be appropriate for you, or do you want to be pulling the items of correspondence as well?
I guess I'll repeat myself. I don't feel I should have to.
Yeah, I'm sorry, members of council. I guess that's what we're going to be doing right now. So there is no need then at this time for adoption of the remainder of the agenda items. So I need a mover and a seconder for separating all items on the agenda.
No,
we just vote. Sorry,
no,
okay.
There's no vote. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we just go on now.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. All right. So at this point in time, I guess I'm looking for the feeling of council as to whether they would like to take a break for 1 hour. So it is 12 o'clock. We will take a break until 1. Councillor Pirelli.
I just request that we break till 1:30. With the COVID restrictions, it's difficult to get lunch in the regular timelines.
I would suggest that 1 o'clock is appropriate. We've got a long agenda ahead of us, and the day is moving on. So I think 1 o'clock is very appropriate. All those in favor of a recess till 1 o'clock? Opposed? Oh, okay, sorry, let's do that again. All those in favor of recess till 1 o'clock? Okay, that carries. Thank you. We will see you at 1 o'clock.